Good evening, everyone. I'd ask you to please find a seat and we'll get started with tonight's activities. I would like to welcome you to the second question and answer session with Mayor Dundas. As with any event, there needs to be ground rules we all must follow. There is a handout available with a disclaimer, and I'm about to read that disclaimer. If anyone would like one, they're at the front desk over there. This meeting is hosted by the Mayor's Office as an informational session for our community. While members of the Board of Aldermen are present, please note this is not an official Board of Aldermen meeting or a meeting of any city board or committee. In order to ensure compliance with regulations, we kindly request that board members sit apart from each other and refrain from discussing the contents of this meeting amongst themselves. It is important to note that some topics discussed here may potentially come before the board for future deliberation and decision making. Please feel free to approach individual board members at the conclusion of this evening for any inquiries. But we kindly ask that board members do not congregate with each other to prevent the formation of a quorum. Also, out of an abundance of caution, questions directly sent by board members have been excluded from the question and answer session. As this meeting is solely an informational session hosted by the Mayor's Office and no official city business will be conducted, minutes of this meeting will not be kept. However, we are grateful to PEG TV for offering to record this meeting for future viewing purposes. And I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Alderman Joe Barbagallo. If you would like to ask a question tonight on the way in, I ask you to write your name on a piece of paper and place it in the container near the door as you walk in. I will draw names from the container at random. This gives each person an equal chance of getting their question answered. I will come to that person with the microphone. I'll ask you to introduce yourself and where you live. You will now be given up to 2 minutes to ask your question. You will then return the mic to me, and the mayor or whoever on the panel was asked the question will then answer. We ask for your respect to allow these individuals to answer this question without being interrupted so that everyone will be able to hear the answer clearly. We will then draw the next name and move on. The question and answer period will last until 7:15 p.m. If you did not get a chance to get your question answered by the mayor will be holding a Have a Coffee with the Mayor session at a local coffee shop. The time and date will be announced at a future time and placed on the city website. At no time will screaming out or creating a disturbance be tolerated. After being asked to quiet down, if you do not, you will be escorted out. At this time, Mayor Dundas will give opening remarks before answering your questions.
Thank you, Alderman Barbagallo. All right, good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. After the November 2nd event and the following Board of Aldermen meeting, one thing was apparent that a lot of people still felt like they weren't getting their questions answered, and that's why we're doing this tonight. The goal here is to hear from you, and if you just want to come up and make a statement and talk about how you're feeling and what's going on and how that's affecting you, that's totally fine too. But the idea tonight is for us to listen and to take your input and feedback in the best way possible and work with you to try to solve the challenges here in Rutland City. And that's an important thing for me to say, right? So I am the kind of person that likes to fix problems for people, right? And it's been my entire life is troubleshooting issues, trying to come to resolutions, and finding ways to solve problems. In this role, it's different. In this role, I have to solve problems with people. I have to solve problems with the police department. I have to solve problems with the Board of Aldermen. I have to solve problems with this community. So I think it's this tonight and the other events that we've had are an example of how we can work together, and we'll continue to talk about that as we go through the evening. Couple things, follow-ups are really important after this event too. There is a sign-in sheet. You don't have to actually sign in, but if you want follow-up, if you want feedback from this event, if you want answers to your questions that we may not have the active answer to tonight, just put your email address down on that form or on the sheet that you picked up when you came in. There's also an email account on there. You can just send an email to that with your information and we'll get back to you. That's important because a lot of people were asking for a handout of how they can get in touch with their legislators when the neighborhood watch stuff is going to start up, when are we doing community meetings. All of that can be sent to you. I want to make sure we're communicating, so just get us your email address and we will get that information to you. Tonight with us we have Chief Phil Cullen and Commander Crowder. Chief, if you want to give a quick intro and then give a quick intro, and we'll get started. Yeah, just pick it up.
Hi, thanks everyone for coming out tonight. Thanks to the rep for using the venue. It's, I think, a great venue for this sort of event. Unlike Paramount, we couldn't see who the hecklers were, we can see who we are now. So, all are welcome. Bring it on. But no, we're here to answer your questions. We raised a number of issues, brought some issues to your attention that I'm sure you're well aware of last time, but we're here to answer some questions tonight. Hopefully we have the answers. We don't have all the answers. If we did, we wouldn't be here tonight. But we're looking to answer the questions that you do have and come up with some ideas going forward. Again, speaking of going forward, over the last 3.5 years now or so, as I think you all know, we started to see a lot of our trends kind of going in the wrong direction. Up until COVID started, everything was really going in the right direction. Right? Everything was down in terms of crime trends. We're really all we saw a downward trend up with everything. And we had some things in place, some different initiatives in place that we're addressing some of our crashes, addressing some of our crime spots, and then COVID happened. And a lot of things, unfortunately, we didn't have the ability to be real proactive to address a lot of what was started to happen coming out of COVID. And for a lot of reasons, there are a lot of factors that brought us here today. We're looking to get out of it. And that's why we appreciate the community coming out, expressing their thoughts, and as I said, answering any questions that you might have, and move forward. So again, thanks for coming out.
Good evening, I'm Matt Crowdy, Commander of Outreach for the city, please. I think the chief is very elegant there. I'm not going to add on to that, so I'll get going.
Okay. All right, I'm going to shake these up and start pulling them at random. I will then come to you with a microphone. You will have 2 minutes to ask your question, at which time the mayor or whoever you ask the question of will try to answer it for you. The first one is from Linda Heck Gross. If you would raise it, there you
are. My question pertains to the people that are in these motels, and my concern is there's legitimate people who have lost their homes, they have their families, they have their kids there. Then you have your druggies there and the criminals there. Are there stipulations for them getting these hotels? I mean, don't they have to be a Vermont state citizen? Why not pass a drug test in order to get these free rooms? Keep these families in a different hotel away from the druggies? It just seems extremely dangerous to me.
And do you have anyone in particular you would like to answer that question? Anybody?
I think we can all sort of help answer this question, but so that, as you know, the program is a state program, and to answer some of your questions directly, there's no requirement that someone needs to be a state resident. There absolutely have been individuals that have come from out of state for the purpose of housing, even in the hotels, even though they hadn't maintained housing prior to that in Vermont. Over the last 3.5 years, a lot of things have changed. And fairly early on, we actually met with some representatives from the state, from DCF specifically, who were running the program, housing program, and asked for sort of some resources from the state, okay? Because our impression was that there was a need that had to be met, and this is what the state came up with, and then it was almost out of sight, out of mind. And so we were dealing with a lot of different issues that were coming up because of the arrangements that were being made. And so we had a number of meetings with the state, and we asked for a resource desk. And for a few years, that really didn't happen. We did the best we could with the resources we had, trying to connect individuals who need services in the community to the appropriate resources. But it wasn't until just very recently where the state actually hired a couple individuals to do exactly what we were looking for and started to require participation in programs that sort of potentially led them to homelessness. So it has changed over time. Again, it's been long overdue. But early on, as I said, there were a lot of rules, again, trying to figure it out as the state, as we all went along, trying to figure out what was best for everyone. And so, yeah, to answer your question, there were a lot of rules early on. And so here we are 3.5 years into it. Things are being tightened up. As I said, it's been long overdue.
Yeah, so the cohort that's currently housed, they have to meet a particular set of requirements to be housed, and one of those is that they work with, I believe there's two, one for Bennington and Rutland County, and one that's working specifically in Rutland County to be engaged in services. And if they do not follow all of those rules, they will lose that voucher. And one day a week, that individual is communicating with us at the police department.
So I think Commander and Chief said it pretty well, but one thing I want to put on top of this is those rules are still vague to some degree. They're working on that, so when legislature goes back into session, that's one of the challenges that they have in front of them, is defining those new guidelines for the general assistance program. So back prior to COVID, when Rutland was only housing about 40 to 50 households in the program, the rules were pretty specific, and the federal dollars, the chief was talking about change rules, now it's back. So we'll see even more progress. And the AHS, which is the department that kind of runs the program, they've stated that they'd like to see the program end in April. Now that might change. We saw it change last year when there was a statement like that before. But right now they'd like to see that program return to its previous state, pre-COVID, around April.
Okay, our next question is from Jan Bryan. Jan?
Hi there.
First, I want to tell you how appreciative I am that our community has the possibility of having access to you folks. I feel that communication is essential in solving these problems. All communities have issues, but if we don't have communication and access to the proper people, that can't provide an atmosphere that's conducive to do that. So my question to you is, while I do appreciate this forum, what are your plans to communicate with us and to have access with you moving forward? I was thrilled to hear that, Mayor Dunges, that you were going to be available in a coffee shop scenario. And that may fit a number of people, but not everyone. If you could speak to that, I would be appreciative.
Sure. There's a couple different things that we're going to be doing. So, like Jan was saying, we starting on Wednesdays from 8:30 to 10. Every Wednesday, I'll be hopping around to different coffee shops so that people can come and ask questions and we can have a conversation. So 8:30 to 10. Some people work; they don't have access at that point. So Project Vision does this really interesting thing where they have a listserv. It's a group. You can sign up for emails, and you can have this conversation in real time. People send emails in, and they can all see that. It can be kind of that group conversation. So I've got that set up. That email address on the paperwork will initially just come to us. We'll get that list going, and then once that list is going, we'll use that to communicate with people. We try to put as much as we can online, on Facebook. The police department has actually started putting its police logs on the city website, so that's there now, so you can see that information as well. I've got some extra help in my office now with Tyler, so if people call and they don't have a place to go, we can direct them in the right direction as well. So there is as much outreach as we can do in this community, right? I did the public morning show with Brian Collmore. I try to get on the radio, send the message out that way. and try to get as much stuff into the paper as possible as well. It's interesting in small communities, the gap in communication, right? Not everybody's in the same place. Only some people get the paper, only some people go on Facebook, only some people want to use email. So we have to try to use all the mediums available to communicate. However, I will say that PEG TV in the Board of Alderman meetings, if you want to know what's going on, watch the Board of Alderman meeting. There's always great information in there too.
So in terms of access to us on a regular basis, so there are a few opportunities, and I mentioned it maybe the last one, Paramount, but every other Tuesday, we have meetings at the police station, the Project Vision Center, called our Rutland meetings, which is modeled after New York City's CompStat process, which is where there's an analysis of the crimes that occur in the city, events going on that involve the police. So we have that every other week. So our next one is this coming Tuesday. And they're at 8 o'clock every other Tuesday, and public service welcoming. So in those Rutland meetings, we go through all the calls we've had in the city. Every address we've been to in the city at least 3 times. We call them 3P locations. So we identify our 3P locations. So as I said, those are addresses we've been to at least 3 times in a 2-week period. And what's bringing us to those locations? And in the room, is not just the police department personnel, but we've got a lot of our Project Vision partners. So we try to identify what the underlying issues are, what's bringing us to these addresses. And so the idea is our partners in the room kind of hear those names, hear those addresses, and the name might might say, hey, I recognize that name. That's a client or whatever. So kind of dedicate some resources to those individuals and those addresses. We also have a police commission meeting, which is the second Monday of every month at police station in the community room. That's at 6 o'clock, and second Monday of every month, and those are open to the public. And there's a standard agenda where you'll hear reports from the various commanders of the station. You'll see an analysis of our crime trends, and again, you hear about our budget, you hear a number of things. But again, that's at the second Monday of every month. As the mayor said too, we started to put not just our call logs on the city website, but our RUTSTAT reports. So if you can't make it to our RUTSTATs every other Tuesday, you'll see the reports on them, so you can look up those and say, hey, what's keeping the cops busy? Where are they going all the time? And so you'll see that. So you see those addresses, you'll see sort of our crime trends, what's occurred over the previous 2 weeks, and there's a comparison of what's kind of going on now versus what's gone on for the previous 5 years. And so we kind of take an average and see where we're at right now. And as we talked about last time, some of our numbers are up. But if you look at our robberies, for example, our robberies are down quite a bit. And there are a lot of, we talk about some of the reasons for those things at our RUTSTAT meetings. But again, reports are available on the city website. We're also putting up on the website, in terms of communication, reports of the results of our speed studies. So you may have seen some of our speed detection devices that have been out. We get complaints on excessive speed on certain streets, so we can't always have a presence there with the officers we have, but we can put that out, right? And so that, and then we download the data, and afterward, so that might be up for a week, right? So we're complaints of speed on Killington, excessive speed on Killington Ave. We'll put that up, we'll get a sense of what that looks like, put the reports up. So after we remove that, we put a sign up that tells you where to find that data. It just directs you to the city website. So again, it's a way for us to communicate to you. And the mayor mentioned, someone mentioned the opportunity for coffee with the mayor, and we do periodically have coffee with cops. So we've had a number of those, and we need to do that a little bit more. Going forward, as I said, during COVID, it sort of went the other way. Prior to COVID, we had a number of community meetings. So the city, for our purposes, we divided the city into 4 sectors. And so we would have community meetings, one in each sector, kind of early in the year. And we plan on doing that again going forward. So look for that early in the year, first quarter of 2024. We'll start those community meetings. And we started doing that really probably 10 years ago, 12 years ago. And they were really well attended. There were a lot of issues, and that seems to be when people come out when there are all issues. And we're glad that happens because we want the community to be part of the solutions. We had those probably, last time was again before COVID, and they weren't well attended. They said it was kind of going in the right direction, so you saw sort of the participation kind of wane. Again, going forward, we plan on doing those community meetings again, and invite you to come out.
Okay, our next question is from Holly Alexander.
So I have a statement and a question. I guess my statement is it's great that you're doing all this, but this is the third meeting we've had on the same problem. What's the end result? Because you have residents that are getting very frustrated. It doesn't take a genius to figure out what's going on in this city. Just look at Facebook. I mean, constantly ODs, robberies, it's the same people doing the same stuff over and over again. And it's great that you say you have accountability for these people and you give them a ticket or you tell them they have a court date, but it goes nowhere. They're back out on the street and they're doing the same thing. So, what do we do? Because it's going to end up on one of your front steps. It's going to end up affecting one of your family members.
Thanks, Helen. Is that both pieces of it? Just
I guess I'm just really frustrated, as probably everybody in here, but I'll tell you, this is it. How many residents we got in this city, and this is it? Showing up for what could be considered emergency. This is a state of emergency, what's going on here.
Yeah. Well, thank you. First of all, thank you for the statement. I'll say, not only do I sense your frustration, trust me, I'm as frustrated. And I deal with this every day from a slightly different perspective, and it's really, I want everybody to know that I live here too, right? I've got kids here too. We live in the city, we're dealing with the same things, I see the same Facebook posts. It's a difficult position to be in. When I grew up in a community, then we could leave the doors unlocked, and now we're locking our doors at home at night. That signifies a lot. That signifies a lot. So, to answer the question about what are we doing, so after last meeting, and since the last meeting, when we heard about a couple of bills that were being proposed, there's actually more bills that have been drafted by your local legislators to go through this process at the State House to look at specifically one of the biggest challenges that we have, which is the repeat offenses, right? So we heard will not talk about how there's a potential bill that will combine those charges for consideration to move a certain amount from a misdemeanor up to a felony, which will give us more opportunity to choose what accountability is available for that individual. There's another bill that other senators are looking at that will allow judges, and this is very interesting, will allow judges to look at pending cases and make their decision on retaining those individuals with their current case based on pending cases that haven't been adjudicated yet. That's a big change. That's never happened in Vermont. That will basically take repeat offenders and say, listen, you've got 10 pending cases. We are not going to let you slide on this. You're going to have to, it's incarceration, it's this tool, it's that tool. Let the judges give them more power to do things. So we're already moving. Here in the city, we're working with those legislators just in the past month to get new bills up there. I'm going to be in Montpelier having those conversations. But that's how we have to make a lot of those changes, is through the legislature. The other side is the administration piece. I had a conversation with someone today about how we can get parole officers the tools they need to actually do their jobs so that they can feel empowered to hold people when they violate parole. That's a big piece too, because some of these people that we see as repeat offenders are also having challenges because they can't hold them after they violate parole. So those things are actively happening, as in like today, yesterday, last week. We're working on those right now, Holly, because it's critical that we get stuff moving forward, and we have to use those tools of working with the state government to get it done.
So, starting introductions here, I mentioned COVID, we're in sort of the other way. I'll tell you, it's going to be a long, arduous climb out of COVID. During COVID, the courts were, practically speaking, not operating in very limited capacity. And they were operating on COVID restriction until September, October of 2022. And so there are a lot of cases that have not been adjudicated. You may have seen the paper, I think last week, an individual that we dealt with fairly regularly here was just sentenced to federal time, but almost 3 years of federal time. And the article mentioned that an individual is also facing 30 state charges, most of which probably occurred in the city of Rutland. But that individual, once he was arrested for this particular offense, for which he's doing federal time, the crime spree stopped. And so that's one thing that we're doing. Unfortunately, we have to partner, we have to access every resource we can to have the best possible outcome, whether that be getting someone into treatment or, when appropriate, getting someone to jail. Because some people do need to go to jail. Not everyone, but some people absolutely do need to go to jail. In this case, as I said, what brought this person to jail was the fact that there was an offense that he had been charged with federally. Typically, the federal offenses that you normally see were either gun-related or drug-related. But a couple of years ago, I mentioned early on too, our crime trends and our robberies being down. I think it was the first year of COVID, or maybe the second year of COVID. We had a spike in robberies. We started charging, again, with our federal partners, charging individuals committing convenience store robberies with a federal offense. And I think that's a reason why our crime trends with robberies really went down. There's really only a couple of individuals responsible for doing a good number of those robberies, but once those individuals were arrested and charged federally, those robberies stopped. So that's what we have to continue to do, access every resource available to us to have the best possible outcome. As I said, it's going to be a long time out of COVID. It took us a little while to get where we are right now. It's going to take a while to get out of it, but we're doing everything, as I said, making yourselves accessing every available resource we have.
All right, our next question is from Mary Crowley.
Last time when we met at the Paramount, you mentioned certain things that we, as people of Rutland City, can do. But we need language, we need the script, we need to know the steps that we take to be able to do something. So my question is, what can we as Rutland City citizens do to make our city more safe? Please be specific.
Well, I can start with this. And this issue came up, I think, last time too, with some groups that are out there, with hopes of bringing public safety, with heightening public safety. And I mentioned, we need people to call us when things happen. I know, as I said last time, no, you don't come. We do come, and that's what we need. When you see something that looks, you've heard this saying, see something, say something. When you see something, you have to call us. It doesn't happen all the time, but sometimes we do get complaints that they go to City Hall, and the mayor might ask, did you call the police? And the answer is no. We need that to happen. We need you to call us. Now again, we talked earlier about some of our community meetings, and the mayor mentioned, I think, at the last meeting too, about Neighborhood Watch. We'll need volunteers for that. So our plan going forward is, so Neighborhood Watch is a program really sponsored by the National Sheriff's Association. And so we're looking to start a structured Neighborhood Watch program. And again, the Neighborhood Watch is there to be eyes and ears. We don't want people confronting individuals they suspect of committing criminal offenses. We do not. It's not safe for those thinking they're helping us. And so we don't want to add to the problems that exist. So we're looking to start a Neighborhood Watch program, and we'll need volunteers for that. So when we start to go to the community meetings, as I mentioned, for the first quarter of next year, we're going to be asking for volunteers to sign up. And this will be run through our community response team under the direction of Commander Prouty. Sergeant Jason Williams will spearhead that, but we're looking to structure a formal Neighborhood Watch program with the model sponsored by the National Sheriff's Association, and we're looking for volunteers. So look for our meetings in the first quarter, come to those meetings and volunteer for our neighborhood watch that we're looking to, as I said, get going early next year. And as I said, and absolutely, when you see something, please call us.
I don't mean to keep taking the mic from you. You're welcome to. Specific ask. We talked last time in the last meeting about writing your legislators. I think Mary says script. That's a perfect example of, you know, what we can do. Chief, Commander Crowdy, myself, others. What we can do is we can probably put together a few sentences that say, hey, this is something that's specific to Rutland that you can send your legislators, who, by the way, a lot of them are here in this room. If you're a legislator covering Rutland County at all, can you please raise your hand, Senate or House? Awesome. So they're here, they're listening, even asking that question, of course. Thank you for being here. But that, we can do that. So that's, again, I'll talk about communication. Sign up for the email list. We'll send that out as we go, right? This is, if we're going to work as a community, we're going to have these meetings in the community meetings. That information, that two-way conversation is going to be important. So we'll send some of those targeted asks directly to them.
I don't know if this has happened yet, but I did ask the mayor to address the board. I'd like the board to draft a letter on behalf of the city of Rutland to the legislature, letting them know, as our representatives, how we feel here, and that those decisions, how it affects us here in the Marble City. And I don't know if we've been able to do that yet.
I started writing the draft.
But they need to hear from us at all levels, you know, as citizens, you know, and the folks that represent each of our neighborhoods.
Our next question does not have a name on it. I will read the question. If the person who wrote it wishes to be acknowledged, please stand up. Otherwise, it will be anonymous. The question is, did housing providers have the ability to access COVID money? If yes, who would those housing providers be? That was my question. That was your question. And if you could just state your name, please.
TJ Pesta. I guess that is my question, but the other thing that I did want to say is that I appreciate you, the chief, and Officer Crowdy for being here. I think that ultimately, as citizens of this community, we need to understand that there is problems, but the solutions aren't within you. They're within the legislature. They're within the laws. The chief can only do what he can do. You can only do what you can do. Crowdy can only do what he can do. The problem is we all need to understand that it doesn't matter what's said in this room, that we actually have to help make change in the state. Housing, crime, all these issues that are occurring are not issues that are going to change overnight. This is a process, and we need to understand the process. We can have a meeting 5, 10 times. The results are going to be the same. If the laws don't change, things won't change. And with housing, we all know April 2024, housing is going to end. And where does that put the low-income people that aren't going to be able to find housing, the people with criminal records that can't find housing, the people that have evictions on their records? What's going to happen then? We think that we're in a rough state right now. What's going to happen in April 2024 when all this funding ends?
Yeah, it's a great point. It's something we talk about once a week, at least if not 5 times a week, to answer that question. And we don't have that answer right now. So one of the things the state is looking at is temporary shelters. They have not looked at one in Rutland. It hasn't been part of the conversation. They've asked where one might be able to go, but they haven't come to us and said, hey, here's what we're going to do. That's also only a temporary solution, right? That's not a permanent solution. I think the question was, has COVID money gone to housing providers? Federal dollars through COVID, ARPA funds, at the state level have gone into funds that are being delegated to housing providers to build housing for affordable housing, for voucher-based housing. That money is getting distributed
So
now.
can I ask you another question in terms of that, in terms of hotels? We're paying these hotels millions and millions of dollars
Yeah.
every single month.
We're paying millions of dollars to these hotels. Why wasn't that funding used appropriately for building housing, to create housing, so that we were in a better situation to house the families that needed to be housed? to not house the drugs that the people that should be housed. Why wasn't that done? Why were the funds allocated millions and millions of dollars for hotels?
So you're not gonna like the answer. I'll tell you right now. So I asked the same question 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, at an event just like this. And I asked the commissioner of the Department of Children and Families, why is this happening this way? Why are we going to those hotels? Why are we spending the money here instead of using those funds to build housing, right? Which would have been a much smarter idea, in my opinion. I have to
It would have been a long-term solution.
Right, a long-term solution, which is what we are constantly pushing the state administration, not just the legislature. The legislature has done their part in this. They have done the best job that they can here. Trust me, they have been pushing. There's a lot of pushback on the administration side too. There's a lot of tears that we are working through. The answer to the question now is those federal dollars were specifically earmarked for emergency solutions. That is the emergency solution our state went with when they developed that program. Those monies could not be used. This is the answer I was given, the answer that still exists today. Those federal dollars in that particular earmark could not be used for longer-term housing investment. The dollars that we have now can. And so the ones that are left that have gone to VHFA and gone to the other agencies, and what we're seeing with the Rutland Housing Trust and the Housing Authority and where they're going to invest, those dollars from ARPA are going to be used for more permanent solutions. It feels a little too late, but in all honesty, the fact that we're moving in that direction is better than where we were a year ago. So I'm excited to see that movement, but it has been a challenge, CJ, and I'm telling you, I was asking the same exact question.
All right, our next question is from Steve White.
I have great sympathy for some of the stuff that you people have to do. My father was a policeman. He went on to become a probation officer, head of probation and parole, ran the Rutland Regional Correctional Center, and became the executive secretary of the parole board. People would ask me, am I going to follow in my father's footsteps? Are you kidding? I went to work for Comcast. But anyway, this is today's paper. In this paper, man charged in fight with family and police. Rutland is charged with fighting his entire family as well as police officers who tried to intervene. Blank, pleaded not guilty Monday in Rutland criminal court to a single felony charge of aggravated assault on a law enforcement officer, as well as 4 misdemeanor charges of domestic assault and misdemeanor charge of resisting arrest. The charges carry a potential combined maximum of 14 years in prison. Wood was free on conditions, including that he stay away from the alleged victims. That makes my hair hurt. Because one thing I've known in life is that if you are a drunk that is capable of pulling that off, they're not going to obey anything that's been put in front of them. We're having a hard time getting this to the people. We have a legislature that so many of our legislators say that they just don't understand how their minds work. And one of those reasons is that we don't get the message out in the type of manner that they get the message out. This paper right here, this article, you can see I'm the world's worst public speaker, but this article says right here, man charged in fight with family and police. That made the Rutland Herald. It didn't make anything else because it isn't really exciting. What that should have said was, Chief Kilcullen was pulled from the court today because he was so mad thinking that his policemen were not even considered in the conditions of the release. There has to be something that tells these people that there's something really radically wrong with this thing.
Yeah, you've expressed, I think, a lot of our frustration real well. And this is great. And this is the message that we need to get to the legislature because it is frustrating. It's incredibly frustrating. Before I came here, I think I mentioned at the last meeting too. It's sort of believed anyway that Vermont doesn't want to incarcerate many people. Some of that's philosophical, but a lot of it is economics. And as I said, in other situations, what's the cost of not incarcerating people? And the community bears that cost. And so those who aren't being incarcerated are serving a sentence in the community. And that's why we talk about those supervising those being sentenced in the community, do they have the proper statutory authority to supervise those individuals? And what the administrative decisions that help those individuals supervise that population? And there's a disconnect somewhere. No doubt about it. That's exactly what we have to try to address. Identify where the disconnect is and address it, whether that be through statute, and it doesn't always seem to be an appetite to change that, but some of it, though, is through administrative decisions. And that's, I think, easier for us to identify that, and I think that's easier probably for us to address.
I know. Steve, thanks. And the frustration is there. I actually want to give the chief a compliment. The reason you probably don't see that headline is because he tends to keep his cool in those situations, right? But I almost don't know if it's just complacency at this point, right? There are things that our officers can't control that are frustrating, and they have to accept it right now because there's nothing they can do about it. So, I mean, I commend them for keeping their cool and dealing with it and working through that process. But it is really frustrating, and it's very trying whether we see someone who should be held, not held, or we see these repeat offenses over and over. It's driving us nuts. I mean, 30% of our officers' time on average, when you look at the data, is spent on repeat offenses and people who should be incarcerated or should be in some form of treatment. That is a real number. That is real from the data. So I feel the frustration. I'm right there with you too, because I want our guys to be able to, follow the law, do their job, and then see a result that says, hey, thank you for doing what you've done. And it's tough when that doesn't happen. One thing I'll say, I do want to make a point. We keep talking about the legislature needs to hear, legislature needs to hear. All the legislators in the room, every single one of them, are hearing you. Not only that, they're supportive and have been supportive over the years of these things, right? So it's a broader thing too. When we send that targeted information, that letter saying, hey, we need support, we need to support these bills that are coming through. When I get those bill numbers, we'll be sending those out. That needs to go sure, it needs to go to your local legislators, but we need to send that to legislators throughout the state. They need to hear the same message too. Just hold on to it.
Our next question is from Kelly Cross.
Hi, thank you. I have a statement and 2 questions, and I'm sorry, I know we're supposed to have 1. The statement first is, I support our police officers completely, 100%. My family is law enforcement. I know the tough job you guys face. I know your hands are completely tied, that you're just going with the motions because it's awful what our state has done with our laws. My first question is, Rutland Town charges hotels for law enforcement. How come we don't? With your new proposed budget, you are looking for an increase for police. That would take the burden off us already overly burdened taxpayers. Hold on one second. Second question is directed to Mr. Prouty. Sorry, I had to write it down. My question is for Mr. Prouty. I requested crime statistics from Rutland City Police Department, the State Police, and the Sheriff's Department for the last town hall meeting. My question is, why you, Mr. Prouty, thought it was okay to go to the other police departments and ask if I had requested that information and whether or not they gave it to me, and then you stated to those departments that you weren't going to give it to me. I got the request, I got the information because it's public knowledge. So my question to you is, why were you so concerned why I was getting that information, and what are you trying to hide?
I'm not trying to hide anything. My question to Jen was, how did she do the data report? Is it non-aggregated data? Was it a breakdown? And she told me, she said she did a Valcor printout of data. And I don't know if you did a request to Records Division for that. And that's something that I don't have control over. If you did a public information request, a FOIA request for data from records, That has nothing to do with me. But I was not going to print out a Valcor report non-accurately.
It's public knowledge. Anybody who requests it from the public, you have to give that information. You actually have 3 days by law to give that information.
I'll speak to that chief on also.
Well, I'm not familiar with the request, or what you're requesting for specifically, but if it isn't a report that we generate, it's nothing that we have to create, sort of.
No, I know.
I'm not familiar with your request, but just in terms of when we do get some requests for the specific reports, it's not a report that we generate, it's something we have to create.
Oh, I understand that. No, it was, my requests were right by law. I know
So
exactly.
that's what we're speaking to. So we don't create a Valcor report like the sheriff's department did. Typically, that's not something that we can do on a FOIA request.
I didn't ask for a bell code. I asked for just the weekly reports that you guys print out to go to the state every week. That's all I had asked.
Okay, that wasn't my understanding.
So I'll speak to the hotel piece. So from a standpoint of what the town does versus what we can do, so the hotel in Rutland Town has an Act 250 permit. Our hotels don't. So Rutland Town has leveraged that permit to say, hey, Cortina Inn, you're not following your uses, and unless you're going to supplement, we're gonna basically review, we're gonna put your Act 250 permit in review, which would put them under stress for what they're doing. So they have a tool to leverage there. We don't have that tool. However, this past week at a committee meeting, we started working on tools in our Charter and Ordinance Committee. So a couple things have come down. In Act 47, which was passed this last year, also known as Bill S-100, which is the Homes Act, the state said that hotels cannot be restricted or penalized for being used as shelters. So the state put that in there. We are doing something where we have looked at all of the costs that the city has incurred above and beyond the normal use of a hotel. And we have started the process on, and we actually probably just have to send it back to committee. We're writing the ordinances right now. Basically an ordinance that says, moving forward, we are comfortable with the hotels being used up to 20% of their rooms for that purpose. We're not going to impede, we're not going to hold you back. You can do that, the state says you can do that, that's great. But beyond that, you're putting so much stress on our officers and our resources, our water, our wastewater, our building inspectors, that there's going to be a monthly permitting fee based on the average vouchers above that 20%. So we went through our Charter and Ordinance Committee last week, and we're working on that internally now to get the language down, drafted, and then we're going to represent that to the board, to send that to the Board of Aldermen, and hopefully it passes, and if it does, we'll put that on the books, and then the hotels will have a fee structure that is directly dedicated towards the overutilization of those spaces that, if you look at any hotel on any other day, wouldn't be utilized that way. So it's a burden on our systems, and we need to recuperate those costs. So we're going right down that direction, 100%.
I apologize ahead of time. I will try to read this name. Michael, I believe it's spelled L-O-V-U-L-B.
You guys, this country is failing on all levels. We're trillions in debt. There's no criteria to run political office. And accountability starts at the top in anything. Now, my question to you guys is, for the people who claim they want to be inclusive, why don't you include the community in a lot of your decision making?
Can you just repeat that last part of the question? I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
The people that claim to be inclusive do not include the community in a lot of their decision making. I was wondering why. Yeah, it's interesting. We have a really interesting situation here in Rutland. We have an 11-member board that represents the community in its legislative decisions for the city itself. Okay, so for the city, you have a board of aldermen, there's 11 members of that board that's supposed to represent the community. But in those board of aldermen meetings, community members can absolutely come, present their perspective. They are heard. In these committee meetings, the board, the committees, the chairs of these committees look at people from the outside and ask them questions, and they have that conversation. We do want to participate with the community. We do want to have those decisions made with community input. I want to actually set up that way. right? If you look at the Act 50 permitting process or any of these processes that we have in place, community input and involvement is so critical and underlying to the way we have to do business as a government that without it, we wouldn't be the state that we are. The trick is people have to show up like you're showing up here. They have to put their comments in and their feedback, and they're hearing that now. That's the purpose of this, is to get that community feedback, to understand what direction you want us to go in, as much as the direction that we know we need to go in. So if you don't feel like that's being heard, again, I ask you to reach out, come to events like this, come to our board of alderman meetings, come to our committee meetings, because we do want that committee input. We do want to be that inclusive community. And I tell you, any board member here, if you want to talk to them afterwards, I'm sure would be more than happy to have that conversation.
Specifically with respect to the police department, we also have a police commission, which are 5 community members who really oversee the police department. As I said, we have those meetings every month, and the role of the commission really is to make sure that the department's being run efficiently. So they absolutely have the ability to help steer the direction of the department, and that's through 5 community members. As I said, those meetings are open to the public, and everyone's more than welcome to attend every second Monday of the month right at the police station.
Mr. Mayor, this is the last written question. It is a repeat from Kelly Cross.
All right.
My last question is, what is Project Vision exactly? What exactly does it do for the community? And where does the oversight of it come from? And how does the public get involved, considering most of the meetings are held at noon when everybody's working? So how do we make Project Vision, since that seems to be the answer for people needing an outlet to help the city, how do we make that more inclusive to people when it's not right now?
Well, let me start with the first question. What is Project Vision? So Project Vision is a coalition that came out of after the death of Carly Farrow. You guys remember that? Chief Baker. We made a big change. He said, listen, we're going to do something a lot different. The police department is being held responsible for all types of social issues, many of which don't belong with the police, quite frankly. Whether it be mental health, folks under supervision, a whole bunch of things. But who do you call? 773-1816 or 911, right? That was the response. So when we built this coalition, Chief Baker at the time says, you know what, we're going to bring the folks to the table, and either they're going to step up and take care of the issues that are under their purview, or we're going to expose some folks, because right now, at that time, the police department was holding the bag for everything. And there are several folks that are in this crowd that were in those meetings early on. So we also at that time applied for a $1.25 million grant, which we didn't get, but the grant needed a name. And so we came up with Project Vision, Viable Initiatives and Solutions Involving Neighborhoods. So there's no budget for Vision, there's no bylaws, there's no 501c3, and that's for a reason. We want to be very nimble. Anyone can be part of Vision. We have 2 rules. We collaborate for the greater good, and we have a renewed focus on the positive. We are represented by the left, the right, the faith community, Republicans, Democrats, everything in between, city folks, state workers, the nonprofit community, private citizens, the public sector. We started doing the meetings at the ACF Church in the House Center. We did that for several years, and it was a working lunch. We never fed anybody, but Terry, of course, someone used to bring us cookies, which was greatly appreciated. And to your point, we actually did have night meetings, and all the people that came here today came tonight. So, but to your point as well, we're going to continue doing our monthly noon meetings as a working meeting, because a lot of the folks doing the work, whether they're social workers at the hospital or the community health or Rutland Mental Health, the police department, and others, Veterans Outreach, we just do our lunch together. But we are going to start doing an additional night meeting, and probably each of the sectors of the city. We want to open that up. How you can get involved, matthew.crowdy@vermont.gov. I'd love to put you on the listserv. You can get our meeting agendas. Anybody can, if you want to take ownership of a particular issue and you want to be that leadership, we'll work with you. We want a culture of yes. We don't want to be telling people, no, we don't want to do that. That would never work. If you think you have a solution to a particular problem, I'd love to work with you. I can tell you, I was never more proud early on in Vision, helping the folks from Roadside Chapel build that pavilion at the Baxter Street Park after we tore down those blighted houses, right? And those were the things that changed. We worked really well together. Listen, I'm a conservative white guy, right, that believes in Jesus. And I work with folks that don't believe anything that I do, and we love each other, and we work together, and we have respect. We find those areas where we can agree to work and collaborate for the greater good. So, I'd love to see you. Send me an email. From the last meeting, I can't tell you how many folks got a hold of me, and I was able to talk to them. But you bring up a good point, Kelly. I think a lot of folks, the vision is sort of this thing that's out there. What is it? You see it on the side of cars. There is some space in the police department after the sheriffs bought their building. That used to be the sheriff's office. Chief Baker, by design, kept that space. City Hall wanted to rent it out, and we said no. And just to dispel any rumors, we don't work for the mayor. Okay, so we told the mayor no. And at the time, it wasn't this mayor. But if it was, we would have told him no too. And we made that a co-working space. So in that space, I have a systems advocate from the New Story Center. We have our embedded mental health clinician from the Community Care Network. We have a recovery coach from the Turning Point Center. We have someone from the Rutland County Community Justice Center that works with victims' compensation for crime. We have, let's see who else. Right now we have the 2 community resource specialists work out of that space. I work out of that space. Sergeant Jason Williams, who is the CRT sergeant, works out of that space. And we're also housing a Vermont Chronic Care Initiative RN from the Department of Health. And also we give office space to those RNs/social workers that the state is using to monitor the folks in the hotels to make sure they're being compliant with in this cohort with that program. That's also where we host the Rutland bi-weekly. So you're welcome to come check it out. I'd love to show it off. We have a little conference room there. But that's what Vision is. And I like it because we can be as creative as we want to be in community. There's a lot of partners for Vision who actually have a much bigger service area than Rutland City. Even though I'm the executive director, what does that mean? It means that I help facilitate the meetings. The listserv comes from the Department of Public Safety. That's the state email. So it's something that we can manage. It's the city's investment in this coalition. We agreed to do that. And we help, like herd the cat, so to speak. But see a need, meet a need. That was one of our committees. And why was that? It was interesting. We'd have a social worker from a particular agency that say, hey, I'm working with a young woman who's just coming out of homelessness and has a child, but they have nothing. So I put it on the C&E meeting. Just saw a need. How are we going to be relevant? I go on the listserv. Hey, can anybody know where we can get a kid's bed and maybe some other furniture? And it was amazing in that process, the generosity of this community, and sometimes even from outside this community. Trainings, hospitals conducting a training, put it on the listserv. People share it. People outside of Vision share those things. Next week we're hosting a human trafficking one-on-one over at Castleton University of Vermont Castleton campus. I get in trouble. Vermont State, whatever. And then for the folks that are in the business in healthcare, law enforcement, social workers that work with human trafficking victims or do those investigations, we're doing one here in the city, but at Calvary Bible Church. So that's what Vision is. I'd love for more folks to get involved. Said I got over 500 people on the listserv right now. Lost a lot of involvement during COVID. when a lot of organizations kind of went into their silos a little bit, working remotely. Since I've been back, we've gone away from the Zoom meetings and like, hey, we all got to get back in the same room again and working together. Oftentimes we had close to 100 people in those meetings. And again, we didn't feed them except for the cookies. So after this meeting, I'll be around if you want to hit me up. You can't hurt my feelings, just so you know. You want to give me shit or you want to just talk about stuff, I'd be happy to discuss it. And it wouldn't be a PEG TV meeting with me if I didn't drop one swear.
If you want to go on the list, or we do have sign-in sheets over here, like I said, put your email address on there, just write PV next to it, and I'll make sure that gets it. We can get you added, that'll be nice and easy too. We got time, I'll get a question.
We still have about 15 minutes left. If anybody would like to ask a question, I ask you now to please identify yourself when I give you the mic, because I do not have your name listed here.
So this isn't necessarily you guys, it's all the legislators that are sitting here. I've reached out to legislators myself about things that are going on. I have a wife that happens to be a para educator in the Rutland City School District. And she works with some very troubled children. And her reward for being able to work with those troubled children is to get worse troubled children, as it seems to be everywhere else. She decided to become a teacher because of what she was able to do with these kids. And, you know, I commend her for that. I think it's a wonderful thing, but also the heartache that she feels when she comes back and says, hey, one of my mothers of a couple of the students want to have me go to a hotel program. The kids are scared to death. They're scared to death that they're good kids. How long do good kids stay good kids if this program isn't changed? And to the legislators, the problem is that we can't enforce laws that you don't create. Years ago, some friends and I, we have traffic here. Anybody that's actually from Rutland City has been around for a while knows about Carly Barrow. And I actually know some of the officers personally that dealt with that case, and they still have nightmares about it. So I spoke to Vince Howell, I said, you know, there's got to be something we can do as a community. He said, do it. I said, okay. Called all my friends. We did something with this partner. We raised $12,000 so a family could bury their child. And when I talked to Kevin Gino shortly after, Kevin said, Bob, would you be willing to do some more of this stuff? He said, you know, you really advocated, you helped out the community and everything else. And I said, I would love to. I said, Kevin, the problem is that nobody's proactive. And Kevin said, you're 100% right. He said, everybody's reactive. But right now, what I don't want falling on deaf ears, especially to the legislators that are here, is you have a group of people that are not only reactive, but are trying to be proactive before this gets out of hand. Because the problem that you're going to face right now, what scares me more than anything, is that somebody's going to have to do something that they've never thought in their life they were going to have to do to protect themselves, and they're going to have to live with that for the rest of their lives. And the reason that they're going to have to do that is because there's no damn laws that are stopping people from doing what they're doing. I have literally no problem with what the police department's doing. I do have questions about the numbers though, but I spoke to Tom LaFon, so I'm not sure how you guys feel about Tom or anything like that, so the numbers could be a little bit skewed. I have questions about the budget. The police department budget, this isn't the place to do it, but obviously this is a safety meeting, so my questions I guess are, I do believe that you guys need a budget. There's no doubt about that in my entire life. But the problem is that everybody in here, we even taxed our sales tax in this city. Vermont is one of the most taxed states in the entire country. And you just keep putting more and more out there with the school budget that keeps going up and up and up. You guys gotta find another way to do this. You really do. And there's a lot of people that are willing to help, and God bless them, every single one of them that's here. And again, I'm like Commander Crowley. I'm a conservative white male. And the problem that I have with that is I get looked down upon by a lot of people, even when I try to be considerate, even when I am helpful. And even when I don't get anybody to shirt off my back, and there's a lot of people here in this community that get overlooked because of that. And we shouldn't be overlooked. Because the truth of the matter is this is not a bipartisan issue. This is a problem that we all have. And for now, for people that think that it's a left or a right thing or anything like that, you're looking at it the wrong way. You have a chance to foster something here. So either foster it or get out of the way and let somebody else do it. And that is specifically for the legislators that are out there. If you can't come to a conclusion and do something about this, so that the rest of us feel safe, so my in-laws feel safe, so that my child feels safe in the city. I can't even send my wife after dark down to the plaza because I'm so scared about her being by herself. Yes. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to wrap up, and not anything against you guys at all, because this would have been a hell of a lot easier if we all got kept to a 2-minute time limit, including you guys. Nothing against you, or anything you guys say, but thank you.
Thanks, Bob. So, a couple things. I'll say it again, and to Bob's point, the legislators in this room are already thinking that way. The ones in this room are already fighting for Rutland. So, you know, again, think about the conversation on a broader scale. I think it's really important to get that message out, and that's not necessarily a bad way to go, is to just kind of spread spectrum and hit as many of them as you can across the board. Just another thing, that what you were talking about when you did fundraising for Carly, that aspect, the fact that that energy exists, the fact that all these people are in this room because they want to work together. There's so many organizations out there you can get together with. Matt mentioned 4 churches when he was talking. There's get together with your church, get together with, I had a pastor come in my office a couple days ago, he says, what can we do? He reminded me of, they did something in the park, it was like a crusade for Christ. It was back in the late 2000s. I said, go ahead and put that together. If you want to do that again, that's a perfect time to do it is now. There's no reason that your organizations can't work together, and I'd be more than happy to be there, I'd be more than happy to participate, or to help you promote it. So if you see something that you can do within the community groups, whether it's the Moose, or Kiwanis, or the Rotary, whatever they happen to build, I'm listing all on the board. You know, if you're in one of those groups, if your group has a passion for helping children or has a passion for helping in these situations, that's a great way to go too. I think there was another question, right? Sorry, I got you sitting down there.
Excuse me, my name is Alex Hillard. I'm a Portland resident, and I'm an aspiring state legislator. I've been told it costs around $168 per night for the hotel program. Meanwhile, the last thing I can recall reading about the program is a report on the deteriorating buildings, rampant mold, and unsanitary living conditions. If there isn't any incentive to improve the habitability of these structures, then their owners cannot be reasonably expected to do so purely from a place of kindness. While I am frustrated about the inefficiency coupled with the rampant crime and substance disorder in the county, I don't think it's okay to allow houselessness to climb back up to pre-COVID rates. What can the city do to make hotel owners do their fair share?
It's a great question. So first of all, I just want to clarify one thing. The article that was talking about the mold and all that issue, that was at the Cortina, that's Rutland Town, and I don't have jurisdiction there, but that's okay. Because we have an amazing department. Our building and zoning department has been going out and doing periodic inspections at these hotels on a regular basis. Like every 2 weeks, hey Joe, that mic is feedback. They've been going out every 2 weeks and doing periodic inspections, and we're holding them accountable. So if you go to Quality, and if you go to the roadway, and if you go to the Econo Lodge, what you'll find is that those rooms are in better shape. We're holding them accountable. We're doing fire inspections. We're making sure they stay healthy. It's not something we can always catch, but it is something that is, as we continue to do that, when we find it, we hold them accountable. We give them a letter. We tell them they have 2 weeks to fix it. We come back, we check, and we make sure it gets done. So we're doing that, and we're going to continue to do that as well. Great question.
Hello, I'm Charlene Anderson. I work for Bayada, so I see a lot of problems that's going on in your community. We've been hearing about the legislators that make the law and stuff. Why is they are not sitting out there? One of them is sitting out there with you guys.
So, it's a great question.
Thank you.
No problem. In the previous...
We have a lot of questions. And since they supposedly sound like the problems, and they need to solve the problems, or they feel like, how hard is that to say, hey, you commit a crime 3 times, a la cárcel, let's go to jail. You know what I mean? Why do we have to deal with it? I have a 15-year-old son. Never walked the street of Rutland because he's scared. I'm an aide, and who's the aide here?
know how much money we make. I pulled my sons out of public school to put them in private school. How am I doing it? By the grace of God. Because they're not safe anywhere. The problem is in some of these homes, and if we don't try to fix our kids, we're not going to have a future in Vermont. We're not going to be able to walk down the street because a 13 or a 10-year-old boy is going to start hijacking us. I came from a third world country, Nicaragua, where this is the land of the free, and we could express ourselves in Nicaragua. If I say something about the government, un balazo me dan, a shot in my head. So you guys that is making the law, we don't need a third world country in Vermont. I always say, when the call is on, I realize I'm a Nicaraguan. Because I think I love people zero more than the Vermonters. I never want to leave the state of Vermont because it's beautiful. The people are beautiful. So we need to start fixing these problems so our kids can have an opportunity. Because the opportunity that my boys, 2 boys, Dominic and Dante, have in this country, we would never have in Nicaragua. My Dante, 11 years old, is the grand champion of the state of Vermont in martial arts in the division. You think he would have that opportunity in Nicaragua? No. My son wants to go to art school, and the public school was making it impossible for them to grow and become what they want because of the main calling, because they see us look different. But I raised them to love who they are, and they're strong boys. But we need to fix this, and it has to start from you guys. And anytime you talk about, you three talks about the legislation, you're not pointing at them. Your head is down. You need to point at them and say, we need to do something for the state of Vermont and for Rutland. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for sharing your story, and I really appreciate you being open and putting yourself out there. It's tough to do, and I definitely feel where you're coming from. Vermont, I mean, the fact that you're staying here for the opportunity, despite the fact that you're dealing with the struggles, shows a lot of strength. And actually, everybody being here and having this conversation shows a lot of strength. The legislators that aren't here, I pointed Eric up there, you up. The ones that are here, they're here to listen and they're here to help. The reason they're not up here is we had a lot of them up here at the last meeting that we did at the Paramount. And this one, we wanted to make sure that you had access to us in the most transparent and open way possible, so we can take this back and have those conversations with them. But they all still showed up to listen, even though they aren't up here. So I want you to, I'd like for you to feel confident that they heard your story. I'm sure that they'll be willing to talk to you afterwards. But your story is, although unique in your way, isn't dissimilar from others. And it's a story that we hear all the time. I'm actually meeting with the superintendent of Rutland Public Schools tomorrow. I talk constantly. I was just having a conversation in my office today about people, the students that are 15 years old today, in 8 to 10 years. The 10 years are 25. They're a part of our community. They're a part of our community is working and living, addressing students when they're young and giving them the resources that they need to be successful. We have a school system that can help us do that, but we need to be working on that as a community. And actually, this space does a great job of that too. We have middle schoolers that come here for something to do, and we want to offer that. So it's a tough challenge. I hear your challenge, and we'll continue to address it the best way possible. How are we doing on time, Joe?
Mr. Mayor, we have one more question, and then we are out of time.
Okay, great.
Mr. Mayor, Russell Rutland City. Very quick question for you. The letter that you're drafting for the legislature, you know, the wish list of like what we need for help, is that something that's going to be converted into possibly something that you can put on the ballot in March, and maybe also tell some of the other communities around Rutland County that can get on their ballots for town meeting day, so we really can send a message to Montpelier? Or is it just going to be, you think, falling on deaf ears? Because I know from the legislature it's not Rutland County. Rutland County usually leads the way in fixing problems, but Montpelier is turning a deaf ear to us. Can you comment if that's something that's going to happen?
Yeah, so the letter, Commander Crowdy did ask me to write it, or asked to have the board put it out there, right? I said, do you want it to come from me? He said, no, if the board gets behind it, that's 11 people, that's, that's 10 more than just you. I thought it was a great comment. I did promise him I'd draft it though, because, the board are volunteers and I wanted to give them a version of it that they could take and modify and then send it out if they liked. Putting that on the ballot, I don't necessarily, it takes me a long time to run up sometimes. Putting it on the ballot, I don't necessarily know is the appropriate tool. The appropriate tool very well may be a petition style type of approach though. And I think, if we put it to the board says we're going to support this, I think we can absolutely put it out there for signatures for other people in our community to say this is what we want to support. So as it gets to the board at the next meeting, I'll see what their flavor is and see if they'd like to go in that direction. It's a great question, and I think it would show amazing community support to Montpelier on what we want to do.
Ladies and gentlemen, that completes our question and answer session. I'm sorry, pardon me.
For those of you that might not be from Rutland City, I request that if you feel strongly about this, go to your select board, your town managers or whoever, have the same conversation. We are not an island. The things that are happening here are happening in other communities. I was in Springfield today, they're struggling, same problems. So it's not just us. So if you know folks in other communities that are frustrated, please encourage them to also go to their boards. Let it not just be us. I would love if all of the towns in Rutland County, if those boards came together and drafted something. Probably won't happen, but I hope they will. So if you're from another community, please go to your board, see if they're willing to take this on as well, and send that message. Thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, now that completes the question and answer session. I wish to thank you all for coming and asking questions. I wish to thank you for your respect for each other and our board members. The mayor will now give some closing remarks, which will close our program for this evening. Again, thank you for coming and drive home safely, please.
First of all, thanks to Alderman Barbagallo for stepping up to run the meeting. I really appreciate it, Joe. And again, thanks to Chief and Commander Crowdy for being here. I know it's part of your job, but at the same time, I come into their office and I'm like, hey, I need you here to do this. Is that okay? And they're like, you're the boss. And I don't know that they want to show up always for these things. I know they did for this, and I know they would be here whether I asked or came into their office 5 minutes beforehand, they'd just be here. So they're always here to support me. So the rest of the department, by the way. So I'll just put that out there. I don't know if you can tell I have terrible handwriting, but apparently between the three of us, I have better handwriting than them. So I'm trying to keep track of what we're talking about for the most part. The general themes we're hearing though, and I just want to recap them. The hotels, they're a sense of concern, at the best, pain and fear at the worst, and what's happening there and how they're funded and what's going to happen next is something that sounds like you all are concerned about. It's something that we're going to continue to have conversations on when we send out the updates. I'll tell you where we're at with with AHS, with DCF, and those conversations about what's going to happen next. We are looking at doing transitional housing in Rutland. That's a 18-month layover, essentially, while we're waiting for units to come online. Rutland has a bigger issue than just an unhoused population because they can't afford a place to live. We have a big issue because there's no place for people to live. That's why rents are going up. Rents are going up because landlords can charge what they want because there's not available housing. So we're working on a bigger solution to a bigger problem, but the hotel situation and transitioning out of that is a big piece of it.
Communication is key for us, two-way. That's what I'm hearing. It's something that I've tried to do, I'll admit, probably haven't done it as well as you'd like. I'm gonna step up, we're gonna fix that. It's simple enough. Please give us your email address or send an email to that. Every single person in this room that's on that list will stay in communication with you. I do try to use my Facebook page. Paul, do you have a comment? Yeah, okay. Go ahead. Did you have a comment or are you asking? Yeah.
Paul Clifford, District 4. I'll be available for anybody's questions.
Perfect. There you go. But that communication to City Hall, to our police department, the idea that you want to hear from us, we will try to continue to get that message out as best as possible. Facebook is one of the best ways to do it. The Herald's a great way to XTV. We'll try to communicate in that direction. There's not a lot of ways to respond there, so email, phone calls, text into the system would be great, and we'll try to keep that communication going. The most cohesive and concise way to do this is going to be through the feedback that we can get from you tonight on that form. Probably the big one that we've heard, and it's come in different forms tonight, is that the revolving door, the repeat offenders, the fact that we can't hold people, and the fact that when they commit an offense and they're out on parole and they're not being held and they're serving their sentence in the community, that's one of the biggest challenges. Not only do we hear that, but we feel it every single day. We feel it every day in the workload of our officers. We feel it every day in the frustration. We feel it every day, as Steve was saying in that article, right? Like there's real challenges with that. I know our legislators are working on it. I'm really excited because I know everyone in Rutland is working on this. Everyone, on all sides, are working towards finding a way to solve these problems. So we have that. Again, we're going to have to reach out broader. So that's where I come in. I'm going to be spending time in Montpelier. I'm going to be talking to legislators. I'm going to be acting on your behalf in these conversations to take this message to the people that can change the rules and change the policies. And that's going to be happening as session starts back up again. So we're going to be spending time up there. I know I've got the support of the department on that. And then specifics on how the public can help. Again, first, look at your communities that you're based in. If they want to help, we will work together with them. There are so many great organizations, but when you come as a group, it is so much easier to coordinate. It's not about being easy, it's with so much to do. If we can coordinate as teams, it will make things better. The other piece of that is, Commander Prouty and Chief both mentioned it, we're going to start doing community meetings. That'll be kind of a precursor to Neighborhood Watch. So these community meetings, a couple of these meetings, we're going to ask for leadership in each of the 4 communities, ask for people that want to step up and kind of lead their neighborhood watches along with the right process and the policy. We'll have that conversation as we go. And then just taking action through those groups and working with us as much as we can, we will tie together. So I cannot emphasize this enough. Just like you want communication from us, we need communication from you. Give us your information, we will put you on this list, we will communicate with the leaders of those groups or you individually to work to get this done. In closing, I think the thing I want to say is there's just 3 of us up here today. We had a lot more of us up on stage last time, but there's a lot of us in the audience that are all responsible for the safety and well-being of your community. You are also feeling responsible for that safety and well-being, otherwise you wouldn't be here. So I'm with you. So are these guys, and I feel like you guys are with us. I feel like tonight was ridiculously productive. I feel like we really heard what you're saying. If you don't feel that way, please feel free to reach out and contact me. But we want to continue down this path of working together, just like I'm going to work together on the state side. I want you guys to continue working together with us to work towards a better Rutland, to work towards solving a lot of our public safety issues. It's going to be a challenge, it's going to be hard work. But you being here tonight really shows that you want to participate in that, and thank you very much. So thank you for coming, have a great night.